This week on Arizona Illustrated, the best of 2014. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Each year, the regional chapters of the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences recognizes and rewards excellence in their broadcasting communities. Entries are judged by peers from outside each region, and this year, Arizona Public Media earned 23 nominations. On October 18th, AZPM was presented with a station record 15 Rocky Mountain Emmy Awards. On this episode of Arizona Illustrated, we present a collection of these award-winning stories. First up, the Sonoran Desert and its local urban landscape serve as a source of artistic inspiration.
We're at St. Philip's in the Hills. And I'm trying to put that in my painting because I want somebody to know where I was. And of course, the trees brought us out today. That's why we're here. I'm looking at something that is just unusually beautiful. We have a wonderful group of summer here today. It's not a great big group, but we get together every Tuesday and paint. So my family has always been artistic, and my dad was a painter. When he had chance, he was a farmer in California, in Ventura, Oxnard area. Well, I always have my easel. I have two of these. They've been a long way, as you can tell, if you really take a look at it. They're not falling apart yet. I keep putting them back together again, but they're beaten up because I like to stand up and paint, and I need an easel to do it. I keep it in my car all the time. My car is my studio because I paint outside. Plein air painting is what we do.
Well, this is St. Philip's Episcopal Church in the Hills, and as I walked in from the parking lot, I saw this beautiful courtyard with the flagstone coming down from the back, and the roses in the barrels, and all the beautiful colors, and the natural surroundings, the soil, and the blue sky in the background makes a beautiful setting for a watercolor painting. My name's Martha Heath. You would call me a lifelong painter. I started in grade school making little Jeeps for the little boys that were interested in World War II. So they would always ask me to paint a Jeep or something like that. But then I went on and got busy with raising a family and didn't get back to my watercolor till I was in my 50s. Whenever I go on a paint out, I make notes. I will often take it with me on journeys when I even travel, so then I never forget where I've been and what I've painted, and some of the little details that I write down about the place that I am in at that time. So that's my favorite way of capturing it in the moment.
So I always have a passion for painting. I love the outdoors, and I discovered that they kind of go together, you know, and I started out, my husband and I used to travel before kids together, and he played classical guitar, and I would paint at the same time, and we paint all over the West, and so I started plein air painting before I even knew there was such a thing as plein air painting. My name is Martha Pankratz, and I've always painted. When everyone asks me, when did I start painting, I always say, I don't remember not painting. Of course, I retired, and I was able to start really painting. And I was a librarian for 34 years, but I always painted. I love to sit outside and and I love to be at one with nature. It's a spiritual type of thing when you're painting, and it's not painting realistic, it's painting your impressions of what you feel in the light and the different colors and things that you can add to it. I am actually one of the youngsters in this group.
Well, watercolor is interesting because when you put the water on your paper and you mix two pigments together, you get some surprising, beautiful colors that you're never able to duplicate exactly again. And that's what I love about it. It's so spontaneous.
This year, I don't quite know what happened, but I think we had rain in the early winter, and there's something about that has made everything really bloom for the spring. Even though they say we're in a drought, that little shot of water made this happen. And so we're out, and it won't last very long. These trees will probably start dropping. If they haven't done it already, in a week or 2 weeks, they'll be gone. So you have to get out there and do it while they're there.
If people aren't happy, then I'm not happy, you know? When someone walks by and just doesn't even like look at me or even like say anything or show any emotion whatsoever, that to me, like that impartiality is so, like, it makes me want to play faster and happier so that even if I just get a little glimpse of something from them, you know, then hopefully I helped them.
For me, moving images from the sky are a no-brainer because flight itself is movement, and that is kind of the defining experience of being airborne, is moving through the landscape without restriction, the restrictions that we're used to on the ground. You have that three-dimensional freedom, which combined with being down low, so you're not so much above the landscape as in it, and also moving slowly, that's really key. And of course the openness just adds to the experience. There are moments when you can feel like, I feel like, almost a disembodied spirit, just moving as we might imagine in our dreams or in our imagination through the landscape.
The bull I'm getting on is 928 monkey soup. I'm gonna try to ride him jump for jump. After you nod your head, you're really not thinking. It's a reaction.
Chamber Lab is a content series of, I guess, what we could call alt classical. It's concert music, chamber music, that comes from composers like myself that aren't really a part of the classical world. And we're writing music for classical musicians who are a part of the classical world because they're really good. And then we're putting the shows on in venues that are not at all part of the classical world.
Our next Emmy Award-winning story centers around a training program that was developed in the late 1980s in Memphis, Tennessee. Its goal, to improve the way law enforcement and the community respond to people experiencing mental health crises. Over a decade later, a tragedy helped to bring it to Tucson, and it's been building partnerships and transforming hearts and minds ever since.
It's a crisp Friday morning, and Tucson police are talking a jumper off a ledge.
I had these shoes that would allow me to, I can bounce. I can just bounce over the traffic. I can make sure that everything looks okay.
Why don't you come over here and show me those shoes? I'd like to see them.
The exchange is serious business, but today, no one's life is on the line. These officers are taking part in Pima County's Crisis Intervention Team Training, or CIT.
Let me think about it.
Over 40 intense hours, they're learning what to do when they're called to help someone who's having a mental health crisis.
Where'd you get those shoes from? I found them this morning. They were under my bed.
We have attorneys come out. a judge come out and he talks about mental illness. We have a psychiatrist come out. He talks about different diagnoses, different medications, and how to interact with somebody that might be in an acute state.
Give me my stinking clutch!
We also have instruction on de-escalation techniques. So it's not just about talking to the individuals that suffer with a mental illness, it's a lot of other professionals in the community that come out here and are pretty passionate about giving the time to the officers to make sure that we're doing what we can.
The officers learn from a range of experts about the medical, legal, and day-to-day realities of mental illness. They also talk to people who are living with mental illness and their family members about what it's like to experience a mental health crisis and what has helped or harmed them when dealing with law enforcement.
When you go on your calls, just be aware of it.
Above all, officers learn to see the person within the crisis and not just the diagnosis or the behavior. For training coordinator Sergeant James Kirk, a cancer survivor, that hits very close to home.
We try to teach them as well, to look at the person and not say he's a schizophrenic, because, people don't look at me and say he's a cancer. He's somebody that suffers with a mental illness, and they are a person aside from that, and they have dreams and hopes and lives just like us.
It was really hard to be at the point that I am right now.
Kirk ran CIT trainings for 8 years before his retirement from the Tucson Police Department. Along the way, he helped train SWAT team members, probation officers, and police from Tucson, Marana, and the Pima County Sheriff's Department. He says the program can have a huge impact on even the most seasoned officers.
And I'll be the first to admit, being a cop for 25 years, we get a little bit cynical. And you start looking at everybody in the same light. And so you come here and most of the officers go, I need to take a step back and to maybe take a look at individuals in a different light and maybe consider that there may be other factors that I don't know about. We had a SWAT sergeant that went through the class a couple years ago, and he's kind of your, when he came into the class, I'm like, I wonder how he's going to embrace the class. He's a tough guy, he's got a tough attitude, and he went through the class, and at the end of the week he said it was one of the best classes that he went through in his 20-year career.
The classes aren't just engaging, they're also effective. A 2011 study by researchers at Emory University and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation found that CIT-trained officers are significantly less likely to use force with someone in a psychiatric crisis.
And when somebody is agitated, and we go in there and we agitate the situation more, all we really do is create a more agitated situation. So we want them to go in, and we teach them to go in and just take a breath, slow down, take your time, be calm, and time is on our side in these situations where people are in crisis.
It helped me get back on my feet.
Crisis intervention team training was developed in Memphis, Tennessee in the late 1980s, but it took over a decade to make its way to Tucson, and its path here began with a tragedy. Retired NYPD detective Joseph Mashensky watched his son find success in the Tucson restaurant business despite periodic bouts of depression. But by September of 2000, work pressures and relationship troubles sent his son spiraling into a crisis.
Next thing I know, we get a call a couple minutes before midnight, saying there's going to be no tomorrow.
Mashensky called the police, hoping they could help track down his son. He soon learned the young man was in his apartment and rushed there with the police close behind. Then the police asked him to leave.
I wouldn't leave, and they physically forced me to leave, made me go downstairs. Right? Next thing I know, or we know, we're sitting downstairs at the bottom of the steps. There's another sheriff's deputy comes in a sheriff's jumpsuit with a dog. And they take the dog up there. And we could hear screaming and yelling. And then all of a sudden there are 4 shots. Right? I ran up the stairs. The dog is tied on the 2nd floor. My son lives on the 3rd floor. He's tied on the stairs on the 2nd floor. I go up there, and my son's laying dead in the doorway of his apartment. I tried to run to my son, and they tackled me and forced me to the ground and forced me to leave again.
In the wake of his loss, Mashensky heard about the Memphis program and decided to take a closer look.
And from 1988 up until 2000, they had only killed 6 people in these types of situations. Here in Tucson at that time, we were killing 6-8 people a year in these situations. Right? Then 85% reduction in arrests, 40% reduction in injuries to people with mental health issues, 90% reduction in injuries to officers. All these statistics, I said, hey, this is a better program. We got to do something like that.
With the support of the Community Partnership of Southern Arizona, Mashensky traveled to Memphis, learned the CIT curriculum, and soon rallied the support of community members and law enforcement and behavioral health agencies.
We had about 40 people meeting once a week. We put all the curriculum together with the Sheriff's Department, with the Tucson Police Department. And my son was killed in September of 2000. In April of 2002, we had our first CIT class.
Since then, CIT has quickly grown. There are now nearly 3,000 CIT programs nationwide, and hundreds of officers have been trained in southern Arizona alone. Officer Brandon Tatum of the Tucson Police Department would like to see the trainings grow even more.
Is he saying that he's in denial, or is it just he can't structure himself enough to continue to take his medication?
After 2.5 years on the job, Tatum sought out CIT training and found it invaluable.
I really wish that everybody that is in law enforcement, everybody in my division and everybody in the department have some sort of training, because I think that over the years there has been a disconnect between law enforcement and citizens, and they feel like we don't understand them, we're too aggressive, and I think that can be, displayed, in a bad way if we don't understand. And I think that with training like this, it helps us bridge the gap.
Tatum says he learned to approach a crisis with more compassion, and that's exactly what Joseph Mashensky has hoped and worked for.
I think people are becoming more aware of what's happening, that people with mental health issues need to be treated fairly, they need to be treated right, and I think that's starting to happen, at least in our community.
Now, Mashensky is pushing for the University of Arizona Police Department to take part in CIT. The UAPD has cited its extensive on-campus mental health resources and its in-house training program as the reason it hasn't participated. The university is proud of its self-sufficiency, says UAPD spokesperson Sergeant Filbert Barrera.
We do a really good job communicating with these students and caring for these students to get them the services on campus and off campus. But I will say, from the department standpoint, I would say that any further training or anything that would provide a different perspective, I think it would be a good thing.
Mashensky says the perspective that CIT provides can protect officers and save lives. And in a way, it has saved his life, too.
We had this unfortunate incident. I worked probably 60 hours a week. Right? It gave us something to do. Now, to be truthful, I feel very good that I think we've accomplished. And again, I don't want to take the credit. It's not just us. It's the community. We had a lot of people involved in this. Right? I think we, the community, have actually accomplished something.
When you don't have the basic support for just regular toothpaste, toothbrushes, razors, shaving cream, any kind of food, it makes you feel like every single dollar you're getting is going to go to just what you need to survive and what you need to look good. And then just having that kind of backbone support from Yodo, it's there to show that you're not going to be entirely on yourself, that they're here to support you and to get you going, to make you want to succeed and go to school.
I'm Coral Kelly. I'm a junior at Tombstone High. I was a driver of one of the vehicles, and I had died from the crash.
At this time, we've got 4 patients. I'm going to go ahead and request the Chico City Fire.
Me, myself, in that accident, I honestly felt like it was real, because one second, me and my friends in the car, we were all talking and everything, and then the next second, the crash happened, and I'm out the window dead.
As the winter months approach and the temperatures begin to drop, those living without homes are in constant need of hot food and nourishment. Over the past 7 years, a local group of volunteers hit Tucson streets to offer help, 1 cup at a time.
We serve right out of the back. We have a hot chocolate soup, and we try and get blankets. They usually provide those, and we haven't got any right now. They come actually from FEMA. We get them. I try and get this as full as possible so nothing flops around,
It's Thursday night at Most Holy Trinity Church on Tucson's west side. Jerry Stryzik and the rest of his team are loading the Matthew 25 Ministries van with soup, hot chocolate, bread, and other supplies before they head out to serve Tucson's homeless. Tonight, they are the Soup Patrol.
Put it in these big containers and we serve it.
As the name implies, the main course is hot soup.
The girls tested it for heat. We have to test it for heat. We're controlled by the state has come in and inspected our kitchens and everything like that and done things like that. So we're up to code, you know.
We need an empty case.
I'd like to have another empty case.
Weekdays, the soup is prepared by Carrie Dodd Community Kitchen, a program of the Community Food Bank. On weekends, volunteers at Most Holy Trinity do the cooking in their own kitchen. Priscilla Stryzik is Jerry's wife and a member of tonight's Soup Patrol.
They're always hungry, and it's just amazing to give someone a piece of bread and see them start eating it immediately. It just brings tears to your eyes to know they're that hungry. You know, you can't help but be moved.
Jerry and his wife Priscilla are snowbirds who spend their winters in Tucson and their summers in Wisconsin. The Stryziks have volunteered in this effort nearly every Thursday night for the past 6 years. Tonight, they ride with Ella Kelly and Mary McBride.
And Ella's a friend of ours that doesn't even belong to our parish. She's a friend that just wanted to join in doing this, and she's helped us.
Mary's been here 6 months, and she just jumped right in.
They are 4 out of nearly 70 volunteers who make up the Matthew 25 ministry, which is one of numerous church-based groups finding ways to serve the homeless in Tucson.
For those sleeping under bridges, on park benches, in doorways or bus stations. For those who can only find shelter for the night, but must wander in the daytime. For families broken because they could not afford to pay their rent.
At the church, before we leave, we say a prayer, and then we talk about who wants to do what. Do you want to serve hot chocolate, soup? What do you want to do? And then we just go and do it.
You want to do the cocoa?
They leave the church promptly at 6:20 and will make 7 stops over the next couple of hours.
We try to be on time because they're waiting there for us. Their day is, you know, they have things to do too also, so we try and be there at a certain time. Some people want to talk, some don't, but it is, I think that's an important part of it too. It's just to, you know, make somebody feel respected and like you're not just, you know, shoving something at them or whatever. Just, you know, hello, how you doing? Just takes a minute to do that. And sometimes that's pretty important.
The first stop is Esteban Park, south of Speedway near I-10. The team arrives promptly at 6:30, and a group of men have already gathered around the van.
Oh, man.
Along with hot soup, they offer clothes and well wishes. The men are mostly quiet. They represent a handful of the more than 2,200 counted in last year's homeless street count, organized by the Tucson-Pima Collaboration to End Homelessness. Most folks who work in social services agree that point-in-time survey does not paint an accurate picture of the actual numbers. Next stop for the Soup Patrol is the downtown library.
That's a good one. Thank you very much, sir. God bless. My name's Dan Dunn. I just recently moved to Tucson January 4th, about a year and 5 days ago. And moved here because my 3 granddaughters live here. And I want to spend more time with them. We're getting to the age where they need to know their grandpa a little better. I got some hot cocoa and some good, really tasty stew here. Some beef stew, it looks like. Hot food anytime, in the morning, at night, anytime hot food's good. You know what I mean? Man needs to eat.
Soup Patrol organizers say their numbers are up over previous years. One night in November, they served nearly 200 people. Jerry says the previous Thursday, they served 176. He also sees a change in the population.
The one thing that I see is, and we've seen that tonight too, some young people, some children, and you see sometimes more of that and more ladies. It used to be mostly a lot of men, you know, but you see more ladies now too. And I think that's one change, and the numbers are up too. But you know, you're seeing more of that.
Thank you.
A lot of times what we eat is like cold food, sandwiches and the likes of that. So having a hot meal, hot food really makes a big difference.
William says he's grateful for the Soup Patrol and their work. He shares a similar concern for his homeless brethren.
Occasionally we'll grab soups because there's like a number of people that actually camp at this location here. So like we look out for those people. And then of course there's leftovers. Someone comes the next morning or whatever and says, hey, you got anything to eat? We're like, yeah, sure, here you go. Thank you very much. No
I just want to know if that's your actual hair or if that's just part of the hat.
Yes! I knew it! Now I have like many blankets. You know, I keep, that's one thing I keep. My blankets and my sleeping bags. And I camp right next to a soup patrol spot.
Some of these guys wouldn't even eat if you guys weren't out here.
Last stop on this night is Vientre de Augusto Park in downtown Tucson.
And if we got anything left over, we got a couple other places that we go also. If we have food left over, places where people are in need of food.
I mean, when you're out on the streets, you know, warm food at 7 o'clock at night, it's just, you know, it makes it so you can sleep.
Josh, who is 37, says he and his wife Beverly are recent arrivals, and that aside from the occasional "get a job" shouted from a passing car, people in Tucson have been kind and generous. They've been living on the streets for just over a year.
Homeless people are people too, you know. I mean, they're just trying to get by just like everybody else, and maybe they had something really, you know, nobody knows. They haven't walked in their shoes. They don't know what they've been through or what happened to them. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of us, you know. I mean, everybody's got a different story.
Jerry and Priscilla Stryzik say their work on the Soup Patrol over the past 6 years has been rewarding in many ways, and that giving back has brought them joy and new perspectives.
Well, we feel completely different about that, you know, because, I mean, I think at one time in my life, and I think maybe a lot of people, you just look down. And I don't look down at these people anymore. I feel sorry for them, and I wish well for them. And like Priscilla said, everybody has a story. We don't know what happened. We know what their situation is. You know, yeah, sometimes you just think that they just want to be like this.
I don't think this is a first choice for anybody.
No.
So Levi's, he's looking for license plates so that he can cut up and make his signs. And then Jen is looking for seat belts that she can use to put on her bags. For me, I'm basically just looking for little pieces of something, some sort of like little piece.
This is a
Resilience, the ability to cope with hard times in positive ways, can also have a physiological impact, and it can grow from Native American cultural and spiritual traditions. New Directions and many other treatment centers across the country are finding that when they incorporate traditional practices, like talking circles and sweat lodges, people are less likely to drop out of treatment and more likely to enjoy better outcomes. According to Begay, scientists are still trying to figure out why.
There's almost been nothing done as far as research is concerned on, you know, the impact, the neurophysiological and physiological impact of Native American prayer, Native American ceremonies.
If you work it. Oh, thank you guys.
So this race is really fun. We started at the start line, of course, then we ran down the first road, and along there you had C-130s, and then also you had all the engines. Then we ran along their road that they call their Heritage Road, which has all the planes that they've had in the past in the Air Force. Then we just did the loop around. It was really fun.
You're doing great, guys. Keep it up.
A reminder that you can watch all of Arizona Illustrated's Emmy Award-winning stories on our webpage, azpm.org. And thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. Next week, magnificent predators face an uncertain future in an ever-growing urban environment, a native way to heal, and a runner's journey. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.